Hi, and welcome to this Ignite Webcast. My name is Josh Topal, and I'm a Program Manager for Office 365. And Ignite events are a series of technical workshops for IT professionals and Microsoft partners. And the Ignite Webcast series will address different technical subjects and scenarios that are beneficial to anyone who wants to increase their knowledge of the Office 365 suite. So today we're really excited to have Bauer and Sujata Tamang leading our call. And Mark and Sujata are both support escalation engineers for Microsoft and are very familiar with Office 365 and the Office 365 suite. So in today's webcast, Mark and Sujata will be discussing how to use message trace in Office 365. So this is a great session that provides an opportunity to hear directly from Microsoft employees and learn about some of the new features and releases with Office 365. So today's webcast will be about an hour, and we're going to leave time at the end to field questions from anyone at the call. So you can type your question into the link chat box below, and we'll try to get to those at the end of the call when we have a Q&A portion. So one last thing is that we are recording today's session, and the recording and the PowerPoint presentation will be both available at this link that I just pasted in at the end of tomorrow, to be conservative. So that's it for me, and I guess without further ado, we can jump right in. So Mark and Sujata, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Josh. Good morning, everybody. I am Sujata Tamang, and I am Support Escalation Engineer with Microsoft Office 365 Escalation Team. And we have Mark Bauer. He is Senior Support Escalation Engineer from Microsoft Office 365 Escalation Team too. So we are here today to present this session on new feature about message trace in Office 365. And I'm very excited to be here today and present you this session. So today's agenda will be, we will talk about what is message trace, how does it help us, what is the difference between message trace and delivery reports, different methods of message tracing, and mail flow. So we will discuss about mail flow examples that includes inbound and outbound mail flow with message tracing. So moving on to next slide, we will discuss what is message trace. So what is message trace? Message trace is a feature in Office 365, which is a new feature, and it enables administrator to follow email messages as they pass through Exchange Online or Exchange Online protection services. So it helps us to determine whether a target email address was received, rejected, deferred, delivered, failed. And also it shows what actions have occurred to the message before it reaches its final status. So moving on to next slide, we will talk about how does it help us. So it helps us to obtain detailed information about a specific message that helps us efficiently answer user questions. So user questions can be like, why am I not receiving expected email? Or why am I receiving unexpected email? It helps us to troubleshoot mail flow issues. It can be, for example, there is delay in sending and receiving email, and we would like to know where the delay is. Then we can use message tracing to go ahead and troubleshoot mail flow issues. It also helps us to validate policy changes, and it helps us to elevate the need to contact technical support for assistance, because administrators themselves can now trace messages in their tenant. So isn't that nice? Okay, let's move to another slide. So here we have, we must be wondering what is the difference between message trace and delivery reports. So as we discussed before, message trace, it enables administrator to search for specific messages and we can use the basic information such as sender, recipient, date, and message ID. So that helps us to obtain status of the message. Whereas, on the other hand, delivery reports, it allows end users to track delivery of email messages. As well, admin can also perform delivery report tracking. The email status, again, in message trace, the email status will help us to determine if the message was received by EOP filtering. So EOP is nothing but it's Exchange Online Protection Filtering Service, which is the latest version of 4P. And it helps us to determine whether the message was scanned, blocked, deleted, or delivered. And these logs will be available for last 7 days. Again, in the other hand, we have delivery reports. This helps us to discover answer to questions like why was a message not delivered, or whether it's in pending state, or we'll get to know if it has been transferred. So these logs are retained only for 14 days. Okay, so let's move on to next slide, where we can see the user interface of message trace and delivery reports. So here we see this screenshot wherein we see message trace options. So first we'll have to log into Microsoft Online Portal, then go to Exchange Admin Center, and we can see this Mailflow tab here and message trace. Here we can mention sender names, recipient name, and we will be able to perform message trace for last 7 days, so we can also customize the time frame. So once we search the messages, we will get the details of the messages, like if it's delivered, it's pending, or failed, and so on. So in the other hand, we have delivery report user interface, and we can, again, we will have to log into Microsoft Online Portal, Exchange Admin Center, Mailflow, and we can search for the delivery reports there. So here we have to, admin will have to specify mailbox to search, and then we can either search for messages sent to or search for messages received from, and we also have an option to specify the subject line. Okay, so let's go to next slide. So let's have a summary of message trace, what exactly it is, and just to summarize, we already know and we discussed before, the trace results are available to administrator for last 7 days, and it outlines the status of message, like delivered. The message was successfully delivered to the intended destination. Failed, the message was not delivered. Maybe it was either attempted or reattempted and not delivered. Pending, so delivery of the message is being attempted or reattempted. Expanded, the message was sent to a distribution list and expanded to the recipients of the deal. Unknown, the delivery status is unknown at this time, so we'll have that status if the delivery status is unknown. That means we do not have detailed information on that. Okay, and one of the biggest improvement with new features in Office 365 is that we have the ability to use the wildcard conditions, either for the sender or recipient or both. So it's star at domain, alias at star at star, or blank. So I think for admin it's very, very nice to have these wildcard conditions. Me as an admin would definitely be glad to know this. Okay, let's move on to next slide. So we'll talk about message trace limitation or considerations. So when we perform message trace, we have, or we get the message ID right? And it has the string which contains opening and closing brackets, so we'll have to include those there. And message trace, it shows only results for messages that have been scanned or processed by EOP. So message trace cannot be performed on the message that was edge blocked. So these edge blocked messages are the messages that gets blocked by reputation blocked list. And okay, so if their emails are getting redirected and it's been redirected to some email address, we will not be able to trace in a single search. So we'll have to provide new recipients information. For example, we have a transport rule, and it says email received via recipient, redirect it to another recipient. So we'll have to specify new recipients there because email is redirected. Okay, and message trace again uses mail from. So the sender is, when we search, we provide the sender, it always uses mail from. So when a messages and last messages matches transport rule, the transport rule ID gets stored in a database, and later if we change the rule, the ID remains the same. So those were the limitations about message trace. Moving on, we will discuss about different methods of message tracking or message trace. So we have two methods of message trace. One is from user interface, and other connecting to Office 365 using remote PowerShell. So here we have an example about message trace using user interface. Like before, I discussed how do we go to this Action Admin Center and perform message trace. So here we see that we can specify sender, add users. So we can add users from a gallery list. So just in case we want to specify wildcard conditions, then there is other tab which says check names. Okay, so in that check names, we can mention like star@star or star@domain.com and search for that sender. And similarly, we can also specify recipients. And so we can also search for the messages for last 7 days, or we can customize the search. Here, I just search for the messages that was sent or received during the last 48 hours, and we have the results here. So, so to get additional information about a particular message, we will have to double click on that, and we will get the additional details. So if I go to next slide, we will see the additional details of the message trace. So here we have the additional details. So once I double click on the search results, I see the additional details. I can see the subject line here. It says test to internal user. So the subject line, it can be truncated just in case it's too long. So it will include first 256 characters. We can see sender name there, recipient's name, message size, message ID, to IP, from IP. So to IP would be where the message is intended to be sent. So if the message is being sent to Actions Online, it will be the inbound message sent to Actions Online, it will remain blank. Or if it's outbound from Actions Online, it remains blank. And from IP, we have the IP address of the client from where the message was submitted, and we can see the delivery status. Okay. So here we can see the events, how the messages got processed, and we can see that message received by this mailbox server. So this mailbox server is the server where my sender resides. Then it gets sent to another mailbox server based on the routing, and later it gets transferred to intra-org send connector, because it's intra-org send connector because the email is being sent to internal user, so hence it gets sent to the recipient there. Okay, so those were the details of the message traces we perform using user interface. So as I discussed before, we have the other method to perform message trace, and that would be using remote PowerShell. And we have some specific commands that we can run to get the detailed information of message. I would like to hand over to Mark, who will describe you here on how do we perform message trace using remote PowerShell, examples on inbound and outbound mail flows. So over to you, Mark.
Hi, everybody. So for message trace through Office 365 Remote PowerShell, in addition to tracking messages through the UI and doing delivery reports, you can also do it through PowerShell using the commands get-message trace and get-message trace details. These are only available in the cloud-based service. You can't run these against your on-premise Exchange 2013 server. We use the get-message trace commandlet to trace messages as they pass through the cloud-based organization. These are pulling right from the hub transport layer repository and a database for those. Message trace commands use the get-message trace with the sender address and the start date, end date, and you get the below result. You'll see get-message trace. You can see it was received at 5:20. Sender address, recipient address, subject. It was inbound and it was delivered. Outbound. You can see it was also went outbound and it delivered. Inbound message. We'll do a get-message trace. Sender address to john@contoso.com. Recipient address. And we can do an FL on those and also see the additional details for the FLs. It'll give us all the details. We've got an example of that later on in the slide deck. And then also to give you an idea of what the more compressed mail scenario is and the actual flow from the internet to your back-end mailbox, there's only 3 steps. It goes through EOP, Exchange Online Protection on the front end, goes to an SMTP proxy, and then gets deposited into the back-end mailbox server. If anybody's familiar with how the path for FOPI was, there were significantly more steps for filtering and reviewing the email messages as they went through. This is the FL that you see from one of the prior ones. You can see the message trace ID, the message ID itself, when it was received, sender address, recipient address, from IP. It was an inbound message and it was delivered. We went ahead and did a get-message trace for that message trace ID. We were able to pull up the information for that particular message trace ID. And then we can also get the message trace detail based on the message trace ID that we got prior to that and specify the recipient address. And this is the output you'll see from that. Message was received by, and it shows the mailbox server that actually received it. Message trace ID, the event was actually received, and it shows the time it was received. That way when your users come to you and say, where'd my message go? You can show them, hey, it was received. The difference between this and the delivery report is it won't show you exactly what folder it went into. So if it's in their spam folder, you'll still have to go and do a delivery report, but this will at least tell you it got to the environment. Message trace ID, message ID, date it was delivered, the delivery status, more details for the same one, mailbox server it hit. Outbound mail flow. Outbound mail goes from the mailbox server directly to EOP on the front end and then goes out to the internet. Bypasses the SMTP proxy. It's only 2 hops out from the time you send your message. You get out of the Office 365 environment, there's of course other hops on the other side. Get-message trace with a sender address, we specified that, and also the recipient address. You can see that it went outbound and it was delivered. Of course, that just shows it was sent out of the environment. Get dash message trace, you specify the sender address, the recipient address, and an FL from that. Shows when outbound it was delivered to an external system. And the IP it was delivered to. In this case was an IPv6 address. Get dash message trace detail, message trace ID specified in this one, and recipient address. These are all the message trace IDs for and what servers it hit for that particular message ID. And then another get dash message trace detail for a specific message trace ID. We want the recipient address and an FL. It shows it was received on 4:30, 5:19 p.m. The message was received to this particular server, mailbox server on our end. Additional message trace details. Message is waiting submission to the mailbox store. It tells you exactly where it's sitting at that particular time that we got the data. And message trace ID for this particular message. It was received. Message was received on a mailbox server in that particular data center. And what IP, the client IP that received it. And one more message trace ID. And it was a send action. Message was transferred from and went out opportunistic TLS connector with a connector ID. And it's on its way to a server with an IPv6 address. Resources on message trace. We'll have these on the slide deck. You'll be able to click on these then, but these are message trace. Run a message trace and view the results, and fact about message trace. So we'll go ahead and open the floor to questions. We also have Scott Landry on, who's a member of the product group, and he'll be able to answer some questions for us, as he's already been answering on the IM thread. Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to add and ask? We have Mike Crowley asking, on-prem, can you use tracking logs to see if email was sent via ActiveSync, Outlook, etc.? Can this be done here? No, this doesn't particularly tell you the transport it was sent from or to. It just tells you it was received by the mailbox server. We're just interrogating the hub transport layer here, not where it was sent from or to. Thomas Nielsen is asking, what kind of options do you have to see the spam handling in your traces? Do you have anything for that, Sujata or Scott?
Yeah, so it will check for malware, or spam.
And does it indicate the spam confidence layer we listed in the message headers? This doesn't specifically give us anything about like a spam confidence level or anything like that, though. It'll just tell us if it bounces. It won't be there if it's blacklisted or something like that, right? And yes, you can see the SCL in the spam in the message headers themselves, not in the actual reports for message trace.
Hey, real quick, I'll promote Scott if you want to use your microphone. Let me promote you as a presenter real quick. And also, I'm going to ask a few questions just in the background, just some survey questions if you can, about this presentation. But yeah, feel free to keep asking questions away.
Thomas, did I answer your question? And Mike, I will pass on your suggestion. I think at the moment the scope of message trace was really about basic troubleshooting, but I can see that being useful from a reporting standpoint.
All right, great. Any other questions? Let's see. We have a few minutes. And also, while people are typing questions, you can see our list of upcoming and past Ignite webcasts here. And if you want to reach out and ask any questions after this session, if you want to reach out to Mark and Sujata or me, you can do so at this link. Here, it looks like we have something from Curtis.
Curtis, so I think probably the best answer to that, and Scott could double check me, but as stuff goes through the hub transport layer, and when we've got redundant mailboxes on the back end, it goes through the hub transport layer twice. So we'll see message IDs going through multiple hub transport servers as it validates whether it was delivered to the mailbox or not, and then it gets rid of the old message. And Mike Crowley chimed in, yes, this happens on-prem as well, by design. I can't remember the exact feature name, but that's essentially what he's doing. If anybody's got the feature name off the top of their head. Shadow copy. Thanks, Mike. One of those days where there's just too much in my brain. Any other questions, anybody?
All right, well, let's see if Curtis has something. There we go.
We commit to a minimum of 7, and from the discussion they were having earlier, they're trying to expand that from what Scott was saying. But we're committed to 7 at this point. Of
Yeah,
course,
correct.
we're always
It's
improving
7.
the product. So that may go out further, based on what the requirements for customers are.
With regards to 7 days and longer, we had checked with the Exchange 2013 tenant, and it's just 7 days. Maybe it can be related, but yeah, definitely we will check further on that and get back to you on that, Curtis.
Sure, Mike. If we can answer it, we will. If we can't, we'll find it out.
So you should see, so right now we do have quarantine functionality available, but it is very limited in what it supports. in-user spam quarantine notifications is being rolled out actually as we speak, so we should be able to light up that feature in the coming days. Hopefully that helps answer the question. So in FOPI, actually, you could configure it lower if you had directory-based edge blocking enabled. I think it was, or yeah. Currently, it is 3 days and it's not configurable in EOP, but we do understand there's a feature discrepancy there. So I don't know what the time frame is, or if there's plans to address that or not. I would recommend, though, if you're considering lowering it below 3 days, you may want to at least look seriously at the junk mail reporting or junk mail folder option as an alternative. Yep.
Okay. Regarding question about why they were not able to see message trace option in portal, user should have permission to have permission to be able to see message trace option there. So the permissions required are should be organization management, compliance management, or help desk. By default, it should be available to admin users.
Yep, I'll also point out that there may be a handful of tenants who have been migrated from the earlier version that are still in the upgrade process. Those customers would possibly, if they do fall into this small scenario, they would have to still log into FOPI and use the former FOPI message trace feature. I don't know if you happen to be in that bucket, but okay, then it's probably some sort of permissions problem, as Sujata mentioned. Let's see, Mike asks, any documentation on the new feature? I do not know what the schedule is on that. Let me see if I can get the guy who's working on that documentation. Hold on.
All right, and we have time for 2 more questions. Let's just do that if there's 1 or 2 more, and then I think we answered everything. If your question didn't get answered, feel free to copy and paste it back into the window.
To respond to the earlier question, that doesn't look like we're up yet, but that is the rough spot where the documentation should show up in the coming days. This is Scott.
Okay, well, I think that's me see here.
When we're ready to completely roll out that functionality, I believe there is supposed to be a blog posting, so keep your eyes tuned there.
And Mike, and if you see, the blog probably will be posted on the Office 365 community. We also have wikis that have all of our service updates. But with that, let me see. I think we can end the call there. Thanks so much to Mark and Sujata for presenting, and for Scott jumping in and answering a lot of these questions. Really had a great presentation today, and look for the video and the webcast PowerPoint presentation on the original blog post. But I think with that, we can go ahead and end the call and look for upcoming Ignite webcasts. Our next one is in 2 weeks from today, and I had the link up there somewhere in the text box of all of our upcoming sessions, but we're booked through July and into August, so we have a lot of really great technical content coming to you. But thanks for everyone for joining, and we'll see you at the next Ignite webcast. Thanks again.